Hey folks, guns, gear, on target training out here in Oregon. Before we get started, if you enjoy our content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I've been asked by a couple of subscribers to talk about sights and what's a good sight, what are bad sights. And I have to say up front, sights are very subjective. Some people like one thing, another group of people like another thing. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the sights I prefer and why I prefer them, as well as talking about red dots and actually having backup iron sights. As I've said before in other videos, the reason to have backup iron sights is electronics fail. They do fail. Sometimes they fail at the worst times. I know a guy who's in DevGru, and he shared with me, they just replaced batteries. They're flying into this op. They get into a firefight. He brings his carbine up, and the dot is dead. It's black. And of course, you know, this is a low light situation, so they have nods on, and they also have lasers on. But as soon as he got a chance, like he got behind cover and replaced, which I can't imagine doing in a firefight, but replaced the batteries on his red dot. So red dots can fail. And do they fail often? No. Could they? Yeah. How many flat tires do you get every year? Me, not very many. It's been many years since I've had a flat tire. Do they happen? For sure. Do I have a spare? Yeah, I do. All right, so let's get started with sights. Now, I want to talk about what I prefer. It doesn't mean you should go this way, but over the years, what I've started to really appreciate is iron sights that have a large tritium, some case an outline around the tritium. I prefer green over red. Again, purely subjective. And what I really like to do is in the back, in the rear sights, rather than having big tritium dots or tritium dots with circles, I just like tritium inserts. So what you see here on this Glock 48 these are Trigicon, and they work great. And for my eyes, the green is easier to pick up. It's faster for me to pick up on target as I bring the gun out to see that front sight and draw my attention to that front sight. For me, again, this is not a red dot. This is just, iron sights. Now, one thing to note is you can have different configurations of sights depending on what you're doing with that red dot. If you're using a red dot, you're probably going to have to go with suppressor height night sights or sights of any kind, but you need suppressor heights so you can see your sights through the window of your optic if the optic goes down. So these are some XS sights specifically for this model with this specific red dot, the Holosun EPS. And what this allows me to do, and again, a very similar setup to my other gun, right? Big green dot in the front with a tritium insert. So if my iron sights are down, I can just press out and pick up that at night, at any time. And because of the way the optic works, is I see the optic really more in the upper part of the window, but it does co-witness, right? So you won't be able to really see it here at all, probably just because of the way the camera is. So forgive me as I try to pick it up there. Anyway, that's what I prefer. Another optic on another Glock pistol. This is a Gen 5 G19. And again, I have gone even more minimalist here, where I have only tritium that shows in the rear and in the front. These sights, again, because of their height, suppressor height sights, they give me the ability to see the sights through the window in the event the red dot goes dead, or in this case, a green dot goes dead. Some pistols, like this Smith & Wesson, this is Performance Center slide here, and the slide had the setup with what they call their core, Combat Optics Ready, blah, I don't even know what it stands for, but the sights here with this SRO are right at the very bottom of the window. So it's not ideal, but for this gun, which is more like competition or range gun, that's fine because I can still see the optics, the sights through the optic. But in this case, the optic is, it's a very large round window, which is one of the nice things about this design. You can kind of see it there. So that works well for me. If you go with a, and this is another M&P 2.0 pistol that was modified, and the slide was cut by my good friend Brad at BG Gunworks. And you can see here what we've done is we've mounted the rear sight right in front of the optic itself. And again, we've got this ability to look through and co-witness that red dot. If you can kind of see it over there. There it is. So all of these are options for you. Another option is just this sort of the straight 8 concept where you've got a tritium insert here and then here, so you're not looking to necessarily align 3 dots. The less busy it is for me, the more I appreciate this, because I just don't have the same visual acuity I did when I was a teenager, right? And so anything that's bright toward the front draws my eyes toward that. And again, these are just some nice, iron sights. And I've tried sights by pretty much everybody, and I don't have a brand that must have. I do want something that's durable and that holds up. I'm not necessarily nice. I mean, these are all tools, and as tools, I use them a lot. And sometimes they get dropped or bashed or whatever. And so I need sights that are reliable. So here we have a Glock 23. And I have left this intentionally, these sights on here intentionally, because sometimes students want to try different sights and they're like, well, what if I just use the Glock sights? Now, the Glock sights are fine. They're totally fine. For me, however, these are simply, they hold the space where I'll eventually replace the sights. But do they work? Yeah, they're plastic. I've seen them get chipped and broken in classes before, or I've seen the front sight pop out. But do they work? For sure. You can come right out onto point, and these, this is good. And apparently some folks in Europe say this type of sight design where you've got, this outline here, drawing you to that dot in the middle may work for some people. Again, I'm sort of agnostic. I'm just not a big fan. I've shot Glocks for years and years and years. I mean, 3 decades. And I've always replaced the sights with the exception of this one pistol, which I intentionally left. So students who want to try the stock sights and they've never shot a Glock pistol and they want to see what the Glock sights are like versus all the rest of the guns that I own that have had sight modifications, this will work. This will work. But if you have an MOS, Glock MOS pistol, and you put a red dot on it, you will not be able to see the sights unless you change out sights or unless you specifically have it milled low enough, which again, I'm not a fan of that. But the MOS is already set up. So all I have to do is swap these sights out with good quality, for me, tritium. The other option that I'm a fan of are, again, depending on the type of shooting you do, is fiber optic front sights. So this upper right here these are from Frank Proctor, Way of the Gun. So we have a fiber optic, green fiber optic on the front, although you could replace it with, whatever color you want. He's got red and everything else. I just like green, and it's completely black on the rear. So all I do is look for that dot, at the same elevation as my rear sight is. So I want alignment there. But this allows a lot of precision, and I really like this setup. So one other thing that I've tried that works super well is I just took the original M&P sights here. I used a little Sharpie and I colored in the white behind there because I don't like the 3 dot setup. And I've got a fiber optic front sight here. And that works really well because all I had to do was replace the fiber optic or the front side. I didn't have to replace all of them. And this, I've shot this pistol just a ridiculous amount, and it's gone through a couple of Cerakote jobs, and they just keep wearing it. So these sights also work. It really comes down at the end of the day to what is best for you. What do you feel confident with? What sight setup do you feel is most efficient for you and the shooting that you do? The reality is, if you have iron sights, you're going to use your iron sights. If you have a red dot, you're not sight focused, you're actually target focused. And so knowing that, and then making sure, for me, having backup irons, so if I have to go to irons because the optic fails, I have an option. And having that option, having that backup is really important to me. Now, some people have said that's a waste of money, just go with a red dot, it's fine. And that's okay. Like, if that's how you want to run your handguns, awesome. I'm not tied one way or another to what you do. Do what works best for you. And if you just said, well, I got an MOS, I'm just going to throw my red dot optic on it, good to go. You don't have to replace the sights. That's fine. I'm just telling you what I do. So anyway, guys, that's a look at sights. The sights that I've been using most recently, particularly on the 43X, the backup sights, are XS sights. And when I went in, and if you're wondering, well, what's the right size? Well, you go to any website and you put in your model number and you put in the optic you're using, and it will tell you which you need, right? What's the right suppressor height? I couldn't tell you off the top of my head if you said, well, if you measure that with your micrometer, exactly how big is it? I can't tell you. I don't know. And I'm not going to take the time to do that, because you're going to learn a lot more by going to the manufacturer's website, doing a little bit of research, and find out what works for you. Well, folks, that's all I got today. A little bit more than you probably wanted on sights, but sights are important. The primary things that I care about with any of my handguns, number one, does it fit my hand? Does it feel good? Do I feel confident using it? The other two things that are important to me are sights and trigger. Can I shoot a stock trigger? 100%. And there are those that believe you should never change a stock trigger for a defensive standpoint. And that's okay for you. If you just want to shoot a gun stock, that's great. For me, I'll take every advantage that I can get. I'm unaware to this point of any case that's been brought against someone who has modified their trigger and who actually can show they've had training, they practice, they have a history of that, they have a log of what they do. That's a much more difficult case for a prosecutor to make, saying, well, you were negligent because you put a trigger in there that worked for you, because quite frankly, I'm going to do everything I can to avoid a fight. But if I get into a fight, I want every advantage that I can get. And because I practiced a lot and trained a lot, I don't put my finger on the trigger until I want to do this. And you will know whether or not you have this discipline if you go shoot simunitions, like take a class with sims. That will really tell you whether you have the discipline as well as the weapons manipulation skills if you get a stoppage to clear that under stress when someone's shooting back at you. And if you can do those things and you train, keep coming back to training, and you practice and you log that and you document it, you're in a good place. Does that guarantee you might be exposed to some liability in the future? There's no guarantee, folks. Like, it depends. It totally depends. But I'm telling you, I personally modify the guns that I have to fit my needs and what I want to do. So if you don't want to do that, totally cool. Well, folks, that's all I've got today talking about sights. There are a lot of great sights out there. And ultimately, you need to choose what works best for you, not what on-target training does. That's for sure. Well, folks, that's all I've got today. I really appreciate all of you watching, the subscriptions, the comments. We're so close to the 100,000 subscriber mark. So hopefully within a couple months we'll be there. We can get there faster if you share this channel with friends and family and invite them to subscribe. That would help us a lot, and I'd appreciate it. All right, thanks so much, finally. And as always, stay safe.